Hello and welcome to the latest Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce Q&A podcast. I'm delighted today to be joined by the UK Head of FX Services at Western Union, David Prendeville. David, hi and welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hi Paul, thanks for having us today. Really interested to join you and talk about how we're helping and your insight into the West Midlands for us.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And I suppose as a sort of starting point, I mean, Western Union is one of those organisations and brands that's really well recognised, very high profile and visible. Some of the sponsorship deals that you have, of course. I mean, can you maybe just give us a sense of the history and the background of Western Union? You know, the scale of the operation here in the UK, and maybe a little bit on your sort of day-to-day focus right now.
Yeah, certainly. It's one of those brands that, you know, it's been going for 169 years in the US. It's one of those quirky ones where I think, you know, we've had the first ever commercial satellite was Western Union back in the 70s. But in the UK, it's a relatively known brand, but only in the FX side in relation to the money transfer. It's really been in the UK on the business solution side and payment side really for the last 15 years. Predominantly that's been around looking at how we can help UK businesses and use the expertise that we have globally, because we're one of the few companies that actually have global footprint, true global footprint.
Yeah.
How does my day pan out? Like everything with FX, it's an ever-changing feast. And my day is predominantly looking at how we look after clients, from servicing them to actually putting them in contact with a highly trained sales force and a highly trained dealing facility that will allow them to actually maximise their potential and equally give them the exposure to the expertise that we can provide. And to me, at the present time, that's probably the most important thing for clients' expertise.
So it's sort of like that additional service. So yes, you'll provide great rates at the very sort of basic sort of piece. And I suppose that's such a competitive market. I'd imagine it's quite hard to differentiate on rates, but really what Western Union can do is so much more. And it's that full service then that you're trying to provide to customers.
I couldn't have put it better, Paul, myself, to be honest, on that side. No, I mean, I think, you know, I'm always going to think rate is one thing.
Yeah.
But rate is right at that point in time. But, you know, with industry, with business, you know, that actually rate that you need may not be for 12 months. It may not be for 18, you know. I'm lucky enough to, whilst I've worked for Western Union, I've worked in industry myself.
Yeah.
So I understand fully, you know, sales cycles, I understand production cycles and actually pricing cycles. So it's the time to be able to actually find when it's right for you and using the expertise to maximise that facility rather than actually just going on pure price at one time, which might not be the best thing for you. And
I mean, you know, the last few years, there's been so much sort of just volatility in the world, hasn't there? And obviously we've seen it in the UK. I mean, really, you go back now 4+ years, I suppose, with the EU referendum and then all of the various elections that we felt like we were having on a sort of annual basis, and maybe just at the start of this year where it felt like there was a degree of certainty approaching for a period, certainly after the election at the end of last year. Then you know, we get hit by the COVID pandemic and everything's back up in the air. I mean, how's that impacted what you do? And I suppose in some ways, and does it make that full service offering even more important and valuable?
Yeah, I think I can remember going back a couple of years now, the Brexit vote where we all thought it was going to go one way and it didn't go that way. And the markets for the next 2 odd years were extreme volatility because no one knew what was going on. It was comments made, fluctuations, and probably in the last couple of years, we've gone away more from what we call key industry-led or market-led, you know, base rate, what's happening and changes in actual currencies fluctuations. It's been very much around Brexit. And I think for manufacturing, it's been a really difficult time because it's anticipating, it's been taking away from the norm. And you know, at the end of this year, I think we all thought, right, okay, we're entering now into a different period. We're entering where we'll be able to talk more about, you know, fiscal policies and how they will affect clients and how they'll affect margins and rates. And then all of a sudden, you know, we get hit with COVID.
Yeah.
That has changed the ball game again, and that has put different types of pressures on market volatility. You know, prior to the call here, I was looking up, it was, if I went on a dollar rate, around the 131 at the moment now. This time last year, we were 121, and we've been as low as 118. So the fluctuations have been huge in that period. And that has a massive effect on manufacturing and industry, because it's trying to find what the budget price is for people.
Yeah.
So it's now more important than ever to have that level of expertise support. So, you know, you can really talk through the cycle, how we're going to help you, whether it's you're in the early stages of, you know, bidding for contracts, understand what the pressures could be on price, you know, because that's been one of my big benefits, is understanding how industry works, is the pricing models that affect any industry. And, you know, you can have a great product, you can have a great team behind you, but if that rate moves against you and you lose your profitability, that puts pressure on any business.
You're right. It's so hard, isn't it? As you're looking for what can you project with any degree of certainty, or try to lock sort of in, and when, you know, the plates are constantly moving under your feet, it's very, very difficult. But, you know, and people are looking certainly right now to sort of get through the sort of the COVID period. I mean, and, you know, we saw it here where, you know, late March, April and May was really, really tough. We were in the hard lockdown. There's been an improvement since. That's obviously reflected in some of the bigger figures. But you know, you're right. It's how, you know, how do you provide that degree of certainty in such an uncertain times? I mean, has COVID sort of dramatically changed your business on the ground, would you say? How have you adapted, both as an organisation yourselves, but then also to try to meet the needs of your customers during this period?
We were really lucky. Part of our structure, and part of it is, you know, being part of Western Union International Bank, is that all our dealers were able to work remotely.
Right.
Part of the thing. So we've had all our call recording, all this was all set up prior to it, because we've had people working remotely in the past. So we were able to transition very, very quickly under our BCP to actually home working. So we've seen no detrimental effects of that. You know, what we're able to give clients is that confidence of that actually all their calls are recorded, their access to the right data, the right information, and confidentiality. Because that's equally what's important when people transition from an office environment to work.
Yeah.
There's a data, there's a privacy issue that you've got to address as well. That's worked really smoothly for us. And equally with our back office support systems, we've been able to do that. Probably the biggest change, I think, is more in relation to how do we go forward, and client face-to-face time is probably the part to it. Is we're lucky we've got a footprint across the whole of the UK. So our teams are not just based in London.
Yeah.
In Peterborough, Leeds, we've got various teams across the country. So we were used to working remotely. But more and more, as we're on the vehicle Zoom, it's more and more you're seeing people doing that face-to-face on Zoom. Whereas before it was always, I need to see someone, I need to spend time in front of them. We're finding more and more companies are able to accommodate this type of vehicle. So we're finding we're being able to. What I'd say is it's the growth of the, your point around the Birmingham Post. Am I getting that right now? Is it Birmingham?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. It was the Birmingham Post, how communication is changing.
Yeah.
And, this vehicle that we're talking through, you get amazing numbers of people clicking on to listen to this.
Yeah.
It's supplying the right content and the right information to clients, because you can get overload. Suddenly there can be lots of stuff around, but it's
you've got to cut through, haven't you? And I mean, it has been remarkable. I think pretty much every organisation we've spoken to and you're sort of dealing with, how, and some maybe weren't like Western Union, where you were already pretty adept to home working, and people maybe hadn't heard of Zoom mid-March, but Teams and other platforms are available. But people are. Everyone has adopted it, and I think because it's had to go through all levels of pretty much every organisation, suddenly that acceptance that we can do it like this. There is a way. Another debate about do you prefer it or not to face-to-face interaction. That's sort of for another day. But the capabilities then, it's just accelerated, hasn't it? That acceptance of how we can do things, and in some ways, I would imagine, driven quite a lot of efficiency as well. And certainly when you've been doing the face-to-face type approach, then suddenly you can get an awful lot more meetings in a day, can't you? If you're doing them using technology rather than having to sort of be out on the road.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, our numbers have actually gone up as a meeting. So that's what's quite it's one of the face-to-face, you'll go full circle, I need to do face-to-face. Our actual numbers have gone up because I think people have become very adept. I have people that are not travelling an hour and a half to work anymore. So they will take an early meeting. And, in your case, Paul, you probably find you have more free time because you're not having to travel to a meeting, losing an hour. You're in the Midlands, you're travelling in a large geographical area. So you actually can fit more into your day.
Yeah.
But then that's my point around people can get overloaded. So it's sort of, we've been doing we've got a quarterly business review we've been doing for a number of years now. And that's sort of very focused around what companies are telling us. And what we're seeing is equally people telling us that sometimes there's too much information, and how do they get through it? Because, to go back to a point that you raised earlier, is, the Midlands is a hub. It's £31 billion worth of industry comes through that. It works out, I think it's just under 11% of the UK manufacturing and production comes through there. And people, with COVID, it's put so many pressures on businesses, and they have to concentrate on how they're getting the business back on a right track. So equally, with so much information, at times people want to cut through the information. They want to be able to take away that they can take away from the businesses.
Yeah, it's massively important. We've found that we use the sort of phrase that we do a lot of translating, and certainly as information is coming through, it's trying to present it in an easy to access and easy to understand way. Exactly for your point, there's just so much sort of noise out there. How do I, as a business owner or a leader, how do I find out what I really need to and get the pertinent information? And there may be times where I'll sit and add to that, but fundamentally, what's the core? And I mean, and you're right here in sort of the West Midlands, big manufacturing heartland. And I mean, we've been talking a lot about the renaissance that we've been going through pre-COVID. And I know sort of talking to colleagues of yours, Western Union have made a real big commitment to the area in recent times, which has been great to see. And you're sort of reeling from COVID like everywhere else, but still lots of reasons to be very positive and optimistic here. Commonwealth Games coming in under 2 years now, and HS2 being another massive driver of development still in the region, and sort of as that infrastructure takes place over the next decade, I think we feel, I'd say maybe relieves the right word, that it's headquartered here and puts Birmingham and then the West Midlands as a whole firmly in the heart of that new network. So still, while yes, everyone's dealing with these issues and challenges, still very much exciting times for the West Midlands as well. Dave, I was going to ask, sort of like, just for those who are watching, I mean, talk us through maybe if there is such a thing, a typical customer life cycle with Western Union. I mean, like, when someone's watching this and they're not currently doing any business with you, or they're thinking about some sort of international activity involving FX and the like. I mean, how does that work? What would be the normal process?
Okay, normal process. We'd like to think that the name, as you say, attracts everyone to us, but there's different vehicles, and that's important. Like through referral through the chamber, through various parts. How clients get to us can come from different sources, and they're all very important to us. I think the part where I like to emphasise is when you come into our cycle, into our business, is even down to the people that are making the calls and the bookings for us, for our Salesforce guys and the business development guys. They're qualified. They are qualified. They have a level of qualification and some of them are progressive at the moment. but have the same level of qualification as a lot of our competitors have in their dealers. So we really down the course of that qualifications and understanding is so important, so that we can take away the worry from people. That they're
you could sort of start triaging almost from the start then. And
we have, so when they sit down, or if it's by Zoom or face to face, depending where it is, they will have, we've got our business development guys have the same level of qualification as most dealers do across the UK, and that's on most trading floors. So they have an understanding of the product. So they can really, at that point, at very early stages, be able to listen and identify who they should be, liaising this potential business with. So that level of expertise starts very early in the cycle. So what we look at is how we then bring them into the business, and look at what and who is the best person for them in relation to relationship experience. We have a number of business development guys that are specialists in particular areas. So we would link a client into the person we regard as a specialist. So
different sectors depending on your area of
depending on where the area is. So manufacturing, whether it's manufacturing, some areas travel to in IT. And what we find is that if you can link someone that has an understanding of the product, understanding of the pressures, it helps the client, because there's different, people talk different languages. Some clients, they're talking, in different sales cycles, short-term sales cycles, long-term sales cycles. So having someone that actually understands their sector helps. And that's
where you can then understand the need and then start to make sure that you're servicing it in the right way. So it's that sort of degree of empathy or advocacy then, isn't it? Which comes down to that investment in people and belief in relationships.
And that's probably been one of our biggest things that Western Union has done when it's coming, is heavily invested in the training of its staff across the board. The qualification level is second to none. And it's something that we hold dearly, that we want to make sure that people feel and get the right level of service, down to degrees, and it's sort of, I always say to people that the quicker you get us in, the quicker we can actually help you. It can be, even down to parts, you'll have got past, some of the infrastructure projects you're talking about, the West Midlands. I've said to clients at times before is, look, if you're going for a tender, you need us involved. You need to understand that actually, you agreed your tender price, but then you need to understand how you secure your pricing to make sure that your tender allows you to actually have that pricing model in place, because you might think you've agreed something, and then the pricing goes against you. You find your entire profit's gone. Yeah. And you've spent 18 months on a project and then you haven't even broken even. And that can be detrimental. So the expertise is there to get involved at that early stage.
It's understanding the market movements, what could be the case, what your needs are, and how do you then find the best and the right product to minimise risk, I suppose, and maximise opportunity.
And that's because of our breadth of product and the size of us, is that we have the ability to design and build the product around the industry and around rather than actually shoehorning people into a one product fits all. Yeah, that's probably one of our biggest differentials, is that we look at exactly what the client is doing. How do we actually suit that product, and equally, how do we actually, sometimes it's right, sometimes we tell them no, that's not right, then we can't do that for you, because we equally have a responsibility to make sure that we're putting the right product, the right client. And really that level of expertise and knowledge sharing is the most important.
And David, I mean, with, sort of with Brexit now looming, and, we're kind of the end of the transition period, and, 31st of December 2020 this year, I mean, what are you sort of putting additional plans in place as, we come through the end of August now, and I think, with sort of 4 months to go, it becomes very real to people, and we all recognise Brexit fatigue, and obviously, with sort of COVID hitting, it's been taking people's maybe mind off it, but going to have a massive impact on international trade, and you'd expect that there'll be all sorts of fluctuations and challenges for businesses who are trading overseas. I mean, what, I guess, what are you putting in place in the build up and around that, and any sort of thoughts or advice that you'd offer out again to people who are watching and maybe sort of wondering what they should be doing to prepare themselves?
Great question, Paul. It's one of those ones. If I knew all the answers.
Sorry, yeah, I know.
No, I mean, I think if I tackle it this way is look, earlier in our conversation, I said around at the end of the year, we thought this year we'd be all concentrating on Brexit.
Yeah.
And sort of, one of those phrases that came in very March very quickly was BCP plans,
Yes.
BCP plan, business contingency plan, what are you doing, and businesses have had to look at how I survive this period.
Yeah.
I can dress it up in other ways, but in a lot of parts was companies were looking at how do I get through it. The strength of our business in the UK is we are creative, we've got born entrepreneurs, and people have adapted. I've got some great stories how people have adapted and changed their businesses to actually manufacture and to thrive in it, and others have protected their business. I think Brexit has suddenly gone off the agenda a bit with people, and I can understand why. I can, because at the end of the day, what's the real and what's happening. We're now, we're 2 weeks away from September. Brexit is looming. I think pressures on businesses are, with the furlough scheme ends. We've got Brexit coming. We've also got the US elections, which has an impact, probably more than ever this time, and we have customers now that are actually, this time of year tends to be a lot of time where people get their budget price for next year. How do I actually take away that pressures? And my one is with the customers at the moment is it's going to happen. It's going to happen very, very quickly. There's no two ways about it. And it's really coming to us and, let us spend the time with you and look at how we do it, how we can help you blend your risk. And that's the part I'd say at the moment is blend this, because, no one can take all the risk away. And if anyone is telling the clients that, I'd be really concerned as to why they're saying that. It's how do we work with you? How do we blend the risk and look at what your projects are, how we can actually help you take away the risk and allow you. I think the part with the moment is, it's an interesting one. Although people have been working at home, they've probably spent more time working than they would normally have.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And so they're spending less and less time sometimes to concentrate on things that sit outside their norm. They've been keeping their business afloat. Brexit is something that sits outside the comfort zone for a lot of our companies. The benefit of a Western Union is, we've had the research, we've got our bodies that we do the research with. We take the relationship with ourselves, Paul and you, is that we use your information that you kindly
it's a great partnership in that
market. And we use that to help us position how we do things. What people are telling us at the moment, volatility is the biggest concern for a lot of companies.
Yeah.
I have concerns over a lot of people. I mean, you'll probably have seen it more than I have, Paul, and directly is people have absorbed that by cutting price. They've absorbed it by actually taking out of future profits.
Oh, yeah. People have been looking for everything, haven't they? Every which way.
Yeah. And the part that is now as well is trying to find new suppliers because they've got to cut costs. And that new supplier is, no matter what we say, the China incident has changed things drastically for a lot of people. So they're now having to look in different markets. How can I find my supplier locally or more? And I think there's an amazing opportunity for UK businesses. Yeah. I do think that they're looking, can we get it in the UK? Or look at subsidiaries globally. And that's the part of we're saying to people is, look, let us help you through that. Because you need to find new markets. Let's help you protect your price. And if you need to go and find new suppliers, let's help you make sure that it works in your favour, because it can be something new, completely new to you.
No, that's fantastic. And I think that's a great way to sort of to wrap up really, Dave, because we know, so much of business, of life is around preparation, isn't it? Preparation. And I think, as you say, it's using the time now to plan ahead. And you know, as you've articulated really, really clearly, I suppose that's where Western Union offer a service where you've got people, you've got knowledge and understanding, and it's around starting that conversation. You bring the expertise to sort of help people in their preparation to deliver the best outcomes. And you know, I think you said at the very start, you know, it's a very rich history. I know it started off, you know, from stagecoaches to satellites, which I didn't know about the satellite link, but you know, it's an impressive operation, Western Union. I think the thing that impresses me most around the relationship that we have here at the Chamber is the sense of partnership. Lots of people talk about that, but you know, to walk the walk is very, very different. And I think that's something which the company embodies, and certainly for people watching and thinking, where do I find those sort of trusted advisors right now? Then you know, Western Union is very much in that sort of bucket. So any final thoughts, David, just to wrap up?
I think, Paul, I'd probably go back to our expertise is vital for people, but equally the expertise of local chambers, local knowledge is key as well, because that's, you're getting live feedback.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part to it. We can take the live feedback from people and make it into a structure and a strategy around you. And that's where we can massively help. But there is so much, you know, I know you send out our reports, those daily reports, reading those, and sometimes it can be a bit, you think, oh God, what are they saying? But it does just show you that there is so much volatility, so much going on, that actually, you know, you did mention about how you take things and interpret them for people and feed the line. I think that's probably the key thing to me, is actually taking away, you know, stripping away it can be really confusing, stripping it away and looking at it and saying, right, you know, my one is I totally believe our job in FX is keeping people in business.
Yeah. You
know, the FX side is a part of it, but if we can help companies stay afloat, actually make them profitable, we're part of that cycle.
Yeah.
You know, I say to my guys is that when they're speaking to us, what you've got to think is that every deal that you do with that client and working through, that's keeping people in this country working. And that's got to be in this time at the moment now, in the COVID time and challenges, that's what we all got to be working together to do.
It's a great reason, isn't it, to be doing something? And I think it's you've encapsulated it really, really well there. That sense of we've got to use the networks that exist. We've got to look for like-minded businesses and people and organisations, and sort of there's a collective sense of we'll pull through, and you know, we're ready to look to better times before too long. But what we'll do, David, we'll make sure that if people want to find out more about Western Union or to reach out, then we'll include all of the necessary links around the video. And I think all that it remains for me to do is to thank you very much for joining us, and thanks for Western Union's continued support of the business community here in Greater Birmingham and the West Midlands.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Really enjoyed it today. You know, as you say, we're there. You know, we're a resource. We need to be. You know, people need to use us.